There are certain things I think that promoters and upcoming elite fighters need to realize. Fighters want to fill their pockets with money. Nothing's wrong with that. That's a good thing. You know, you're putting your life on the line in a very dangerous sport. So, of course, you should be paid accordingly. But there's a couple of things that these younger fighters need to understand. And, you know, everybody talks about Floyd Mayweather being the blueprint for how to make money in boxing. And, I got to say, if you younger fighters and even the promoters are really, really serious about following the blueprint of Floyd Mayweather, then you probably need to look at how Floyd Mayweather conducted himself early in his career. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. See, fighters who make more and more money are going to have more and more people want to come and attack and fight them, right? So if a guy's a cash cow of a division, we expect a lot of fighters to come to him, want to have fights with him or her. Okay, that wasn't the case with Floyd Mayweather in the beginning of his career. Floyd Mayweather was not the cash cow. Okay, and Floyd Mayweather became world champion. I believe it was in 1998. I think he debuted in his pro boxing career in 1996. Became world champion in 1998. And if I'm not mistaken, 3 years into his championship reign at super featherweight, he faced Diego Corrales. It may be 3 or 2 years into it. I'm not too sure which one it is. It could be two. Who was the best super featherweight in the division? Floyd Mayweather was the best super featherweight, but then Diego Corrales surpassed him and became the best super featherweight in the division. In fact, Diego Corrales was pound for pound at the time, I believe, pound for pound higher than Floyd Mayweather as well. So Floyd Mayweather faced, at the time in Floyd's division, the world champions were Diego Corrales. For a period of time, it was Robert Garcia, the now famous trainer in Moreno Valley and in uh, California, anyway. And also other fighters such as Asolito Freitas and also Joel Casamignour, who were later world champions, were the champions of the division. Floyd was the WBC champion. Diego Corrales was the IBF champion. And Diego Corrales was undefeated, uh, dominant performances against almost every opponent he had faced at the time before he faced Floyd Mayweather. Had a ridiculously high knockout ratio, kind of like Tank Davis, and he was the draw. He was the guy in the division. He surpassed Floyd in the pound for pound list, and he also surpassed Floyd in the division as the number one super featherweight in the division. And if you look at Diego Corrales' career, I mean, the only other guy, Diego Corrales, um, he took on all comers. Okay, Floyd took on Diego Corrales. I believe it was in 2001. Floyd stepped up to the plate and he faced Diego Corrales and he stopped him. But the most important point about it is this was the only guy who wanted to face Floyd Mayweather in the division. Um, Joel Casamignour and Asalita Freitas were not interested in facing Floyd Mayweather. The guy who was interested in facing Floyd was interested in facing everybody and unifying. And after he beat Diego Corrales, he wanted to look to see the winner of Asalita Freitas and Joel Casamignour. But those guys, they carried on. Asalita Freitas won, and Asalita Freitas didn't want anything to do with Floyd Mayweather, so he moved up into another division because he could unify. So when you talk about Floyd Mayweather wanted to fight the best. He wanted to fight the best fighters out there because one of the things that a lot of these young fighters do not understand is that in order to be the best, you have to beat the best. You're not going to just organically make money. Now, a lot of fighters today are making a lot more money than the fighters of yesteryear. That's another thing. So a lot of them now, they're trying to, with their promoters, sort of guide their careers so that they can't get a blotch on their record, a loss or whatever. Listen, man, listen. A lot of y'all fighters don't understand. Floyd Mayweather was interested in getting the biggest, tough opponents out there, the best, the guys who they consider the best. He wanted to beat them, right? And he continuously said it in interviews afterwards who he wanted. He had the mindset and attitude of a Shakur Stevenson, of a Devin Haney. These are real dudes, you know. Dimitri Bivol, that's another real one out there. They understand that you have to beat the best to be the best. And by being the best, your value goes up. And, once you beat one of the best and you continuously beat the best out there, the best, not one of the best, but the very best out there, what happens is your stock goes up and more and more and more and more, and your value goes up more and more and more. This is just the way how boxing is. If you're out there not beating the best guys out there, I mean the very best guys, you might be a cash cow of some, but you'll be a temporary cash cow because people are going to realize, oh, you might sell out arenas and stuff, but at the end of the day, you're not beating the best. Oscar De La Hoya didn't just become a cash cow. It became a cash cow because, again, Oscar De La Hoya is another guy who, when he was coming up, he was fighting the very best fighters in his divisions and beating them. And then he started fighting legendary fighters, Hall of Famers like Julio Cesar Chavez, Camacho, Pernell Whitaker, and so on and so on. The list goes on and on. And he was beating all these guys. Gennaro Hernandez, who's another guy that Floyd faced, the very best super featherweight. Floyd Mayweather's first title shot was against the best super featherweight in the division at the time, which was Gennaro Hernandez. So I want these young fighters to understand Teofimo Lopez faced the best lightweight in the lightweight division at the time, which was um, Vasily Lomachenko. But then after that, Teofimo Lopez has sort of fallen off the scales. He after he lost to Cambosis, he's been fighting guys, but not the very best. And he has the opportunity. I think he's in line. He has the opportunity to face Reggie Sprogray, who is one of the best. I mean, other than Josh Taylor, Reggie Sprogray is one of the best um, super lightweights in the super lightweight division. So Teofimo Lopez taking on Regis Prograis would be a good, again, would just show his desire to face the best out there. But I don't really see that. I see a lot of these young fighters um, settling for facing anything but the best. I'll give you an example, and I'm just not to call names of some of these fighters, put them on blast. So, for example, MJ in the super bantamweight division. He's not facing the best right now. Now he's a unified champion. He won by split decision. He has not tried to rematch uh, Roman. Okay, he has not tried to Manuel Roman. He's never tried to rematch him, and it was a split decision win he had over him. And on top of that, he doesn't seem interested, or he's not. He hasn't made a move towards unifying with Stephen Fulton, who now has a tremendously big fight, and it's going to make him a tremendous amount of money against Naoya Inoue, who is undisputed champion at bantamweight. He's the undisputed bantamweight champion still. Moving up to super bantamweight to take on quite a handful in Stephen Fulton, who is arguably the best super bantamweight in the super bantamweight division, but we can't really fully know until he faces MJ. MJ seems to have no interest in facing Stephen Fulton. We're not getting a peep out of MJ right now. And Eddie Hearn wanted Stephen Fulton to sign to Matchroom for that fight to happen. That's not going to happen. So Stephen Fulton, he's getting the cash, like I said, in the short there. And MJ is just beating on scrubs for Matchroom. And Eddie Hearn's never going to get that fight with Naoya Inoue because I think that Fulton's going to beat Inoue. And so I guess Fulton's gonna move up, and then MJ is probably gonna then look at scraps or whatever. But I want to say that we see this in boxing now quite a lot, and with younger boxers, like MJ is a younger boxer. Fulton's a younger boxer, and Fulton, you could tell Fulton's off the cloth of I want the smoke. I want to smoke with everybody, right? That's how you got to be. You got to be like that's what Floyd Mayweather was uh, all the way up until he fought Oscar De La Hoya. After he fought Oscar De La Hoya, he was more selective about who he would face, who he would fight, and even then, he was fighting the best fighter available, right? But in the case of guys like Tank, um, Tank's not facing the best possible opponent. The best possible opponent for Tank would be Devin Haney. He should go straight at Devin Haney. You know, Shakur would go at Devin Haney tomorrow. You know what I mean? Um, Obviously, Tank is not facing the best fighter out there, and it's clear in that division the best fighter right now is Devin Haney, and that's just the way how that goes. He has all the belts, therefore he is the best fighter. Until you beat the best, you cannot be the best. And Tank at lightweight is not the best fighter at lightweight because he doesn't have the hardware. It's just what it is, and that's how it will be ranked. Tank's not going to be ranked above Devin Haney. I don't care what BoxRec says. He's not ranked above Devin Haney because he doesn't have a belt in that division as far as I'm concerned, and Devin Haney has all the belts. So until you beat Devin Haney, you are better than Haney. And you're not better than Devin Haney until you beat him. He's the king of the division at the present point in time. I don't care how much money and how much of a draw you are. And so this is not old school stuff. This is just boxing. There are certain things in boxing that are inflexible, and this is one of them. And no matter what they say about Tank being a draw or not, I couldn't care less. You want to be the king of the division? You can be the cash cow of the division, but you ain't the king of the division. You're not the best boxer out there. You're not the best fighter out there until you beat the best guy. Until you beat the best guy, ain't nobody giving you that award just like that. That dude worked hard to get to be the best. So if you want to be the best, you got to beat the best to be the best. That's just the way our boxing works. You know, you could talk up the top of your lungs until you step up to the plate, face Devin Haney and beat him. You're not better than Devin Haney, Tank, and that's just the way it is. I don't care how you feel about it. You're not, and you're not a world champion at lightweight. You're not. Don't let them fool you. That title that you have there is not the real title. All right, so keeping it moving. Um, so the fighters, you know, in different divisions. Now, seeing Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence haggle over fighting for undisputed, and now Errol's moving up to 154, and then Terrence still at 142. I wanted to say to both guys, buck the hell up, buck the hell up, both of y'all. You know, Bud needs to back down and make sure he makes the fight. But Bud's behaving like he's the A side of everything. There's always an A side. There's always an A side. There's always a B side. And you have to learn to be humble. And this is the way how it is. If you want the fights, if you want to make the fights and make the fights happen, then you got to take the steps to make the fights happen. If the guy thinks he's the A side, it's fine. Because you want to take the title from him. So once you take what he has, you be the A side and you can dictate whatever you want. You understand what I'm saying? It's just like a contender versus a world champion. The contender, he doesn't get to call the shots. Contender don't get to call no damn shots. It's the champion. That's why it's called A side, B side. Okay. Now I heard Bill Haney talking about, you know, Devin Haney. You know, he doesn't care about A side and B side. You know, listen. Y'all don't understand. There's always going to be an A side, and there's always going to be a B side. When Devin Haney was going down into Kambosos territory, he had to listen to Kambosos' demands. And the Kambosos was the A side. Okay? When Devin Haney beat Kambosos, he became the A side, and he gets to call the shots. And that's what Devin Haney said, I get to call the shots now. Right? That's just the way how boxing works. It's always worked that way since the beginning. Okay? Once the world champion dictates the terms to another guy. All right, and the guy who was the guy at that point in time was Kambosos. He had the most of the belts, so he got to dictate where the fight took place and so on. If Devin Haney wanted to fight, if he wants to fight him, then he would conform to the terms, and that's just the way how that went. All right, there's always an A side, there's always a B side in boxing. In fact, Devin Haney has been the A side, you know, for many fights where his opponents, you know, whether it's based on their records or whatever, their opponents were match made with him, and then he was the A side. He was expected to win, and even though he dominated those opponents like the A side was supposed to do, the point is he was the A side. Okay, and so when Billy and he talks about, you know, the people's champion and stuff, that's cool and all of that, but Bill Haney knows, as we all know, there's an A side and there's a B side. Okay, there is an A side and there's a B side. It's that way. Devin Haney's been the A side most of his career anyway. All right, except in certain matchups, he's not the A side. Terrence Crawford's been the A side for most of his career anyway. But for certain matchups, he's not the A side. Against Errol Spence, he will not be the A side. So he has to listen, conform to certain things to get that big payday. And listen, let me say something. It's not the be all and end all with that fight. What I mean by that is, Terrence Crawford, I hear Terrence Crawford saying, I don't need Errol Spence. No, no, dummy. If you want to make this fight, you need Errol Spence. If you want to be undisputed, you need Errol Spence. You know what I'm saying? These guys need to stop with the ego thing, the ego trip. Yes, you've been the A side most of your career, and you ain't want to give up, but you got to stop with the ego trip. You got to try and make the fights happen. These guys, these fighters, they're getting way too comfortable, and it's sad because they have the attitude, they have the savviness, they have the savageness and everything, but then they deny the fans the big fights that the fans should see. And remember, fans are willing to fork out money for big fights, real big fights. The pay-per-views that are going today, like many people have said, some of these fights are not pay-per-views; they're showcase fights. They shouldn't be on pay-per-view. You know, and I know Tank knocks out people left, right, and center, but some of his fights are not supposed to be pay-per-view. They're not pay-per-view worthy. People say, well, why is pay-per-view so low? Why the pay-per-view buys are so low? It's because people are not going to pay for certain matchups that they didn't ask for, first of all, and then are not very competitive. Who's going to pay pay-per-view for stuff that doesn't deserve to be pay-per-view? So people are talking about today, pay-per-view buys are quite low. You put on a good fight, you give us a good fight, you give us a good matchup, they'll pay for the pay-per-view. And it's sad, but people just don't get it. Again, it's about the best facing the best. I expect when Dmitry Bivol faces Artur Beterbiev, should I say, um, if they do it as a pay-per-view or whatever they do it as, it's going to really attract attention because that's, again, a big fight at light heavyweight. See, every division has a big fight in it. Every division. And the problem with some of these promoters and fighters is they do not seem to respect or understand what the big fight in a particular division is, how much money it can generate, how much people will come to see it. If you give the fans the big fights in your division, your fighters get the biggest paycheck they can get because that's the biggest fight of the division, right? Unification fights are big fights. People talk about, fighters don't need belts and belts are not important. Listen. At a certain point, they're not important if the fighter has a big name, right? But I don't know any fighter today. The only fighter I think today who has a big enough name where belts don't really matter, the only fighter I can think of is Canelo Alvarez, right? Canelo has faced 18 world champions, okay? He's had 20 something championship fights, okay? The guy's name says it all. And even then, Canelo's still not a big name like Pacquiao or Mayweather or Sugar Ray Leonard or Thomas the Hitman Hearns. He doesn't have Mike Tyson. He doesn't have that kind of name. His name is not as big as even Julio Cesar Chavez, right? But Canelo commands that money because Canelo has such a rich history. He's accomplished so much in the sport of boxing that he has that name that draws that leverage. So whatever he wants to do now in his career after he's developed his career to this point, sort of kind of he's living off his name, sort of. If I were him, I wouldn't go into cruise control. I would keep on pressing and pushing myself and facing as much of the biggest, baddest names out there. I know you'll be more selective because once you become king of the mountain, now you were trying to maintain to stay as king of the mountain. So I understand the kind of selectivity that he may be going through, but I would suggest to him that he faces the people he's supposed to face. There's certain people that are just there, been around him for the longest while, and he needs to get that tenacity that he had coming up and just say, the fearless tenacity to say, I'm going to face this dude and this dude and this dude. I want you. Who the fans say they want? All right, time to treat them. I want you, and you. whether it's Benavidez, Caleb Plant winner, whether it's Charlo, or whether it's Andrade. Take them out. Go at it. Win, lose, or draw. Just get those fights. The fans wanted those fights for the longest. That's what sell pay per view. That's what makes pay per view. You know, you want the biggest fights. This is how you get the biggest fights, and that's how Canelo's value would go up. He don't even have to go back to 175 ever. He got enough people there to make career defining fights. He's got four people right there. He got Charlo, he got Andrade, he got Benavidez. That's good enough. You know what I'm saying? So I hope that these fighters would understand that it's about getting the best versus the best. The best guy right now out there, I believe, is Benavidez. They say Benavidez is the best guy out there, even though I think Plant is a hell of a fighter. I like to see what happens with Benavidez versus Plant. That's what we need to have. We need to have the best possible guys in every single division facing off with each other. That's where the most amount of money will come from. And co-promotions or whatever it takes to make those fights happen should happen. You know, I think promoters are very selfish, and we've seen that in the case of the promoter for Ivan Redcash. What happened there? And I think that selfishness by promoters shortchanges them from making abundance of money. One thing about Don King, and he made a lot of money, is he was willing to do co-promotions with Bob Arum or with whoever else. And I think that's fair. I think that now the question is, do the fighters actually want to take that risk? Because like Shakur Stevenson says so correctly, it's up to the fighter to take the risk. If the fighter puts his foot down and says, I want this fight, then the promoter will have to fall in line, no matter how protective the promoter wants to be. If the fighter says, nah, I don't care, I want that fight. Adrian Broner's always gotten the fights he wanted in the PBC. Danny Jacobs got the fights he wanted, and he was with the PBC. People say PBC fighters don't get the fights that they want. No, PBC fighters get the fights that they want if they really, really want it. Like Errol Spence, if he really, really wants that Crawford fight, if he really wants it, he'll say, I don't care what it takes, make that fight happen. We saw when Mayweather really wanted that Pacquiao fight, really, really wanted it, no matter what Pacquiao was doing. Floyd got in person with Pacquiao and started negotiating with him. And I wanted to say something else to the fighters. The fighters need to understand something. Y'all need to be talking with each other. All right? No matter if y'all are enemies or whatever. Let's take a perfect example. Muhammad Ali, I'm going way, way back in time. Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier. The reason Muhammad Ali, Joe Frazier, the first fight happened was because Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier arranged to face each other way before that fight was ever announced or anything. Joe Frazier was helping out Muhammad Ali in his time, when he didn't have much money and stuff. And Joe Frazier was actively trying to get Muhammad Ali to get his license back as well. And then Joe Frazier was trying to help Ali out so that Ali could get back into boxing. And then once Ali got into boxing and the fight was announced, he just changed on Joe. You know what I'm saying? Because Joe was helping him out every step of the way. And then the bad blood between them had happened. But understand, they had made an arrangement to face each other even before everybody knew that. Okay? And in boxing, the fighters, y'all need to meet each other, because it really happens when fighters speak with each other. And they say, hey, man, I want to face you. We're going to build it up, and we're going to make this thing happen. Another fight where it was real bad blood between those guys. And the fighters, again, they made it happen. They talked with each other first, so they know they were on the same page. And then no matter what the promoters or anybody said, they was making sure that fight happened. Another famous fight like that, and these guys fought like cat and dogs. You know what I'm saying? They fought hard at each other. And again, you don't have to be an enemy of a guy to fight fight him like if you want to kill him or you're going in there to kill him in the ring. You don't have to be an enemy of a guy to do that. But I just want to explain to people that, you know, there would be no boogeyman of a division if fighters just did what it was supposed to do and get in there and face the guys they're supposed to face. And I'm gonna tell you why that works out. There are two reasons. One, you're making money doing that. And two, you win, lose, or draw can always say, I faced this dude. Let's explain that. Let's look at what happened over the weekend. Liam Smith, right? Liam Smith, I did not see Liam Smith having a chance in hell to beat Chris Eubank Jr., right? Liam Smith pulled off an upset that nobody saw coming. Nobody. Anybody saying that they saw it coming, they lied. He pulled off an upset in beating Chris Eubank Jr., who's a fighter I think is superior to Liam Smith in terms of boxing. That wouldn't have happened if Liam Smith didn't have confidence in his abilities and skills and didn't believe that and didn't make the fight happen. And these promoters who come in the way of these fighters, not allowing them to make the fights happen. A guy might be a better boxer than you. You know, he might be superior to you in terms of skill and everything. But if you apply yourself and if you put the right game, you know what I've noticed about these fights, even with these showcase fights, they're tougher than usual. And even some people are getting upset in these showcase fights. And I'm going to ask the question. Which do you prefer as an elite fighter? Having a showcase fight in which you get upset, and everybody looks at you like lesser than you are, or fighting a big fight against a guy making his name, an elite fighter in the division, and then you make more money off of it. And if you lose, you still get your respect because it was one of those really top tier fighters, you know. And I've seen it time and time again where fighters are made to look less than they are, or fighters are upsetted where they shouldn't have been, all because they're trying to protect themselves from the fighters because they're protecting themselves from losing, and in so doing, they lose. Right? You go for the big fights. You don't go for you. When you're building your career, you want to get to the point where you fight a big fight, and even after you beat a big name, you want to get another big name, and so you want to keep it going. If you look at Devin Haney and his attitude, that's the attitude Floyd had. That's why Floyd didn't lose so, and that's why Floyd has one of the biggest reputations in boxing. Now, as he got more options and everybody was coming at him, everybody wanted a shot at it. He had to look for the best of the people who were coming at him. And there was a lot of tough quality people he had to choose from, right? Canelo has his options as well. But if he can knock them down one by one and get all four of them out of there, win, lose, or draw, again, that just adds to his career and his legacy. These fighters need to understand not only adds to your legacy and career, but it also adds to your money value, because they're so focused on money. But sometimes in your focus for money and trying to preserve yourself because you don't want to get lost or whatever, I don't know what the fighters be thinking or the promoters, but in trying to be in your own clan and your own thing and control the money in your own little stem or your own whatever. I know you got to stab your batch of fighters, whatever. When so doing, you actually cheat yourself out of money, because again, the biggest money that can be made comes from the biggest fights, and the biggest fights always come from elite fighters. It's always from the elite fighters, the top fighters. Okay. I mean, at the end of your career, if you have a tremendous reputation, people will pay to see you fight something that's intriguing but not necessarily conventional. But during your career, and mostly through your career, you got to fight the top guys. You just have to, all the time. All right, Tank versus Ryan is a good fight because Ryan's a top guy and Tank's a top guy. Right? So what I'm saying is, but Tank's still not facing the top guy. he doesn't have the attitude like Floyd Mayweather. That's what I'm trying to say. His attitude is, I'm gonna fight guys for the money fight. I ain't mad at him, except for one thing. That's not how Floyd began his career. That's not how Floyd and Tank's career is going by, and he's fighting good guys and everything, but they're not the top guys. That's the difference between Floyd and Tank. Even when Floyd's making the biggest set of money, he's fighting the biggest names. Okay, it's still risk versus reward, because why it works is because the risk is worth the reward. It's tremendous amounts of money. You look at the end of Floyd's professional career, he generated more money than ever. He was fight after fight, he was generating more and more money. And that's what a fighter wants to do. But you can't do it with the attitude of, oh, well, I need to preserve and protect myself here. And I don't think I'm going to face him right now. And I don't think I'm going to face. That's not when you're building your career. Not when you're building your career. And Tank's still building his career. He's now coming into his own. But the pay-per-view's still not big. He's not like a pay-per-view star. You know what I'm saying? Errol was going really, really well. And then Errol's falling off the grid now. He's doing some really strange things, like he's fighting Keith Thurman at 154, which means he's probably not going to come back down to welterweight, which means he's not going to try and fight for undisputed, which make no damn sense. Why'd he collect 3 belts if he wasn't planning on being undisputed? I'm just saying, boxing's a weird sport. You know what I mean? And so I'm just saying, it makes more money for him, and it makes him more in the history books, his legacy and his money, if you go and you fight Crawford for undisputed. You know what I mean? But it doesn't look like he's going to be facing Crawford for undisputed. They may face at 154 or something. And that's a crying shame. It's a crying shame. You know what I mean? It is what it is, but it's a crying shame. It would mean that Zab Judah would have still been, since 2007, some 16 years ago, was the last undisputed champion at welterweight. There was a chance to make history. Of course, who cares about making history? Except with making history, you increase your value, your dollar value. You know what I mean? And I don't care who would have won, whether it was Crawford or Spence. It's a part of a history-making thing, and also something that will make money, because what fighters forget is you can live off a legacy if you do it right. Sugar Ray Leonard's living off of some of that legacy. You know what I'm saying? Mike Tyson is now cashing in on some of it. You know what I mean? And you can have paraphernalia and all kinds of things you can do to make money off your legacy. Floyd, he makes money off his legacy all the time. Going to, talk to people at conventions, and he also does his exhibitions. He makes his money. He don't make the kind of money he used to make, but he makes money. You know what I'm saying? And all for the pay-per-views and stuff. So all I'm saying is, and that's another thing. You could become a pay-per-view star, and then you make money off of that pay-per-view revenue. But nobody's going to just go and watch you as a pay-per-view star if you're not giving them the kind of fights they want to see. When you say big fights, what do we mean? Are you going to fight some guy, cab driver off the street? Or are you talking about a real big fight where you're facing the best in your division, who also are money-making fights and have a lot of following behind them because they built their career to a certain point? And so you get this massive fight, which makes them a lot of money. Because why? Because both guys have reputations at this point in time. And this is what these younger fighters I think they keep on missing out on it, because ain't no Floyd Mayweather wasn't doing that kind of crap that y'all doing right now, where y'all trying to literally ducking people. Like some of y'all, like Willie Zepeda and all them guys, are you not ready and but listen, man. If you're at certain level, if you're at contender level, you're ready. You gotta step in the fray and test yourself. You got the different levels. So if you're a debutant or a novice or whatever, then we don't expect a novice to jump up in there and go up against a contender, right? We don't expect a novice to jump up in there and go against a world champion. But if you're a contender, if you're at contender level, you're supposed to step up to the plate and face a champion, right? because obviously Shakur is a contender. He's jumping up in the lightweight as a contender. Why is he not? Why is he a contender? Immediately because he was a world champion at the division before. He mastered that. So he's jumping up to the next division to say, I am a contender now. Zepeda turned him down. Isaac Cruz turned him down. What the hell are they doing? Right? Why would you not want to face the best? Right? And so you get these spoiled fighters who are ducking other fighters, clearly ducking other fighters. That's not cool. If you're not hungry to be the best, what the hell are you doing in the sport, man? Get out the sport. Go do business or something. You know what I mean? You made a good enough paycheck, get out the sport. Because I'm not saying that these elite fighters can't face each other. You know, Isaac Cruz versus William Cepeda or whatever. But if a guy is trying to make a fight with you, and he's one of the best, he's a pound for pound fighter, he's one of the best, why would you not want to face him? What boxer in their right mind wouldn't want to face a dude like that? You're going to make some money. It's going to fit into your legacy, but they're afraid for some reason to lose or something. I don't know. They think 2 L's is the end of the... Listen, man, a lot of you young fighters need to understand. You got to step up to the plate. If you want to have legacy or you want to have money, you got to have the legacy to make the money. Don't let nobody fool you. Let nobody fool you. It's all about big fights. And big fights don't come if you don't have a big matchup in boxing, especially with younger fighters. So if y'all want to really make something happen out here, y'all have to step up to the plate and take on the challenges that beset you. And if you're at contender level and you're saying you're not ready, well, you will never be ready to be a world champion. Right? If a world champion is calling you out or a top contender is calling you out, and you say you ain't ready, he's not ready to face him yet, then you'll never be ready. What the hell are you doing at contender status? That's the status where it's do or die. You're supposed to be ready to step up to the plate and become a world champion. And so sometimes I see these fighters and they're doing like, the business of boxing is what, they're trying to be more business savvy. I'm like, well, you're shooting yourself in the foot, dummy. Don't sit idly on the sidelines. Let them know, I want that fight. I want that fight. Make that fight happen. Because the way how you really make money in boxing and the way how people will really watch your pay-per-views is if you're really facing real people. If you at a certain tier, if you're at contender level, or let's say you are championship level, we expect you to face either championship or contender level competition. Right? So if a man call you out and you can't answer the call, you're trying to hide or duck or dodge, then guess what? Guess what? You're not interested in facing the best. You're not interested in making the most amount of money. All right? You're not. Anyways, man, that's what you need had to say to you guys. Anson Phillip is my name, of course. And again, I'm not knocking these present day fighters. I'm not going to ever do that because I know it takes a lot to do what you do in the sport of boxing. These guys really polish their craft and everything. I am also willing to be patient with them. But what I need to let them understand is the big money don't come. I'm going to say it again. And y'all talking about all this pay-per-view. Big money don't come from pay-per-view by you fighting somebody who's lesser than. Right? Big money comes when the best face the best. That's what people want to see. They want to see fights. It's not so much about 50-50 fight. Maybe the guy who's the best and the other best guy, there's a difference in you could kind of figure out who would win the fight. But the point is, if you don't fight the fights, we can't really know. Because, again, I thought Chris Eubank Jr. would beat Liam Smith. And Liam Smith annihilated Chris Eubank Jr. He knocked him out, right? Had Chris saying all kinds of crazy stuff in the post-fight conference, right? So at the end of the day, y'all got to understand, you have to fight the fights. You never know what will happen. Nobody really knows for sure.
Sometimes the guy's a favorite, and then you get what we call the upset. And we've had over the last from 2000, what was it, 2017 or 2018, I think it was, or 2019 until the present time. We've had a number of upsets, right? We've seen Anthony Joshua get upset by Andy Ruiz. We've seen uh, 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 so many upsets, many upsets, right? So it shows that it's better if you fight a big fight than you try to make it marinate and then somebody gets upset. We've seen it even with Floyd's career against Zab Judah. They marinated the shit. Zab was supposed to face Floyd as soon as Floyd entered the division. Floyd faced John Bay Mitchell. Zab faced Carlos Baldomir. And Baldomir upset Zab Judah. That is the price you pay for trying to delay fights and trying to make them marinate. Don't try to do that. In boxing, which is a point I made in the short, in boxing, there's no if. Boxing doesn't work by ifs. You deal with what's in front of you. You don't deal with what's in the future. You don't deal with hypotheticals. Boxing's a doing sport, and it's about what's in front of you. In other words, a lot of times, promotional companies and promoters, they make it sound like we made this contract with this guy for a fight down the road or whatever. Why are you telling us that? Because if you have a fighter right in front of you, we don't care about what's down the road. Because that fighter, if you're not paying attention to that fighter, it don't matter what's down the road. When you lose the fight and you lose all that stuff, Chrissy Bank Jr. was talking about this is a preparatory fight for, bigger, more lucrative fights. And what happened? What happened? Right? They lost the fight. Right? And now the narrative by fans is he's done, he should stick a fork in it, blah, 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 blah. Right? You know how the narratives go. But the truth be told, he wasn't completely focused on the fight he had at hand. So when I listen to Eddie Hearn talk about, if Inoue wins, if Inoue wins. Ninja, we don't talk about if. We got to see the fight first. And right now, y'all fighter is in the coop house. Y'all paid him what you paid him, but you ain't really making no money off of that fighter because you're so stupid. You should have done the unification. You had the unification right in front of your face with Stephen Fulton. You would have made some money. You know what I'm saying? Your fighter would have probably had some respect because Fulton don't knock out people so it would have been a good fight. He would have still had his credential. Fulton might have been undisputed, but the other guy would have still been a good fighter. Still could have become world champion when Fulton moves up. But they don't think like that. Because if you listen to me. Keith Thurman could call for money. Why? Keith Thurman's faced Manny Pacquiao. He's faced Sean Porter. He's faced Danny Garcia. Right? He's going to be facing Errol Spence. He faced Robert Guerrero. Okay? What makes Keith Thurman's monetary value and why he can call a price is because of the guys he faced. Far less the guys that he beat as well. Because your resume, what people don't understand is your legacy is kind of interknit with the money you make. Now, what you do with that money, that's on you. But it's life-changing money for a lot of people. It's life-changing money. You invest that money, you're good for life. And on top of that, you always can tell the stories about the people you face. And if you market yourself properly, you have a future. Right? So the problem with some fighters is they're not business savvy at all. And they're just fighters. And then you have the other fighters who they're business savvy, but not, they're kind of business savvy to their detriment because they don't understand the business. It's still based on, and that's the problem Adrian Broner had a little bit. He's a very entertaining guy, fantastic fighter and everything. Focus on winning. Wasn't there with him. See, boxing is a balance. It's not just, you can't just go out there and just, it's not just one thing. You have to focus on several things, but primarily, it's about the craft. If you don't perform, it doesn't matter how good your team is. If you don't perform, if you don't go in that ring and do what you're supposed to do, it doesn't matter. Which is why you have to focus on what's in front of you. And
these promoters, for some reason, a lot of them are so focused on themselves and making so much money for themselves and their brand that they stupidly do not seize the opportunities when they come to them. You see, what I'm trying to get these promoters to understand is there are opportunities, and they come and they go. We saw it with Deontay Wilder. We saw it with AJ, right? Again, that was a tremendous fight that could have happened between Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua. They were both undefeated. That fight would have made ridiculous amounts of money. They were at the peak. They should have fought then. It's a big, big money fight. Now it won't be as big. Okay. Now, my point being, you have to seize the opportunity when it comes to it. Don't let it marinate. Don't let it. Listen, there's certain fights now. People always talk about Mayweather Pacquiao. Listen, man, Mayweather Pacquiao. Listen, first of all, Mayweather and Pacquiao were veterans of the sport by the time that first offer to fight came around. They were both. Floyd had fought Oscar De La Hoya. He had fought Ricky Hatton. Pacquiao had fought a whole set of people through a whole bunch of divisions. So that when they were supposed to clash with each other back in 2000, I believe it was 2010, when they were supposed to clash with each other, Pacquiao had just beaten Miguel Cotto at welterweight, which is basically in these 16 division or 17 division era. That was like 8 weight classes up from where he came from, 8 to 10. I think 10 weight classes, or 8 or 9 or something like that, divisions upwards from where he came from. He was a well-formed, well-experienced fighter by that point in time. Okay? So what I'm trying to say is, Pacquiao, it delayed a bit. And even then, it lost some of its luster because Pacquiao lost twice. Marquez stopped him, and the year 2012, Timothy Bradley beat him, and then Marquez stopped him that same year. And that fight was not a hard thing. It came back, it came back after all of that, and it lost its luster. That fight could have made even more money than it was if Pacquiao kept on winning. But what y'all have to understand is, even though the fight made more money than initially, what you have to understand is you got to seize the moments when you can, especially when you're not experienced fighters like Pacquiao or Mayweather. See a guy like Canelo can do whatever he wants because he has an established resume. He's fought the who's in his different divisions. So Canelo can do whatever he wants. Whereas Pacquiao and Mayweather, they could have done whatever they want, right? When you're not that established, when you're just in one division or you've gone through 3 divisions, but you ain't really faced nobody, you ain't faced no Hall of Famers, nothing. You can't be trying to call shots because you don't have no legacy. You got no legacy. You got nothing. Floyd is living off his legacy. Pacquiao's living off his legacy. These are legacy fighters. That's why we call them legendary fighters. All right? Sugar Ray Leonard to this day is still living off his legacy. All right. So legacy does matter. You can eat off of legacy to some degree. Now, when you become bigger than belts and all those things, you're an established fighter. You're a veteran of the sport. You're an established. None of these fighters that I'm talking about here, none of them are full-fledged veterans of the sport. I know some of them are 10 years in the sport, whatever, but their accomplishments don't make them. They're not legends. They're not legends of the sport. When you become a legend, a living legend of the sport, you can do whatever the hell you want after that because your status is cemented because you had certain fights and certain things you went through. Pacquiao's a legend. His status is cemented. Floyd's a legend. These guys later on in their careers, of course they can pick and choose kind of like sort of amongst all the people that want to come at them because their name is so big that everybody wants to get a piece of it, right? With Gervonta Tank Davis, his name's all right. He's a fantastic fighter. He's the cash cow of his division, no doubt about it. And above and below, nobody's saying no. But the problem is he's not still validated as the best in those divisions. He's not validated. You see, that's the problem. So when we talk about guys like Tank and Ryan Garcia, who's not validated at all, he ain't done nothing in the sport of boxing when it comes to being, significant or legendary. He hasn't done anything yet. Okay. Um, so it's all about what you do in boxing. Boxing's a doing sport, and boxing is very straightforward in this sense. You only deal with what's directly in front of you. Like Tank and Ryan, they're focused on facing each other. They're not focused on nobody else, right? That's what you got to handle business in front of you. The problem with Eddie Hearn is he dropped the ball in terms of the biggest money making fight he could have had for MJ and for his company, which was to face Stephen Fulton. You have to pay attention, people. They'll say, "Well, there wasn't enough money." Listen, you dumbass. If he beats Stephen Fulton is big money from there on in. If Stephen Fulton beats him and it's a competitive fight, still big money fights for MJ going forward. The promoter sometimes really hurts the fighter and the potential of money that a fighter can make. We've seen it with Top Rank versus with Floyd Mayweather. Floyd Mayweather went on to be a tremendous, I mean, the richest, as you can see from uh, my profile picture. He's the richest. He was the richest athlete in all contact sports, and all sports actually. He became okay. Bob Arum kept him back. That promoter. The fighter, you have to, as a fighter, one, you have to look out for your own interests, and two, the promoters, y'all. If the fighters do well, you're gonna do well. I mean, really, really well. Because if the fighters are doing well, they're going to get more big money fights. You're going to get more big fights. It's all about big fights. It's not about showcase fights. Those are not the biggest fights. In boxing, the biggest fights and the biggest money making fights in all of boxing always come from the best facing the best. This is what it is. So you have to build up to that point. And Tyson Fury when Anthony Joshua didn't want to face Deontay Wilder, Tyson Fury took the challenge, and look what he's done for his career. Basically, his career has been built in a mega way off of Deontay Wilder, not off of Vladimir Klitschko, amazingly, off of Deontay Wilder. And it depends. And Wilder, if he does face Andy Ruiz, that's a hell of a fight because Andy Ruiz can fight. Andy Ruiz can fight his ass off. So if Andy Ruiz comes in shape, Andy just cuts the distance really well. That can be a very interesting fight. Wilder's a good counterpuncher though, so it would be a very interesting fight. But Andy Ruiz he's a tough bastard, man. I think if there's anybody who could stand up to the punches of Wilder, it would be Andy Ruiz, besides Tyson Fury. And the thing about Andy Ruiz, if Andy Ruiz comes in shape, he's going to cut that distance on Wilder. And it'll be interesting to see what happens after that, because Ruiz throws combinations. But again, a very interesting fight. Of course, the guys at the top are Tyson Fury and Alexander Usyk. Fury's playing mind games with Usyk, or trying to. Hey, that's one guy he's not going to phase in any way, shape, or form. All the empty threats and all of that mean nothing to Usyk. Usyk's going to come in there and do what he do. And I'm being real with y'all. The bad boy in that whole division is Usyk. Usyk's the bad boy. Believe it or not. Fury's big, he's strong and everything, and that's cool. But Usyk been about the business. He went straight at Anthony Joshua, beat his ass twice. And he's coming for Tyson Fury. So I mean, I'm gonna be interested in seeing if Fury can beat Usyk. Because Usyk knows his boxing very, very well. Fury should beat Usyk, but you just never know. The way how Fury is behaving, kind of stalling with the fight and everything, Usyk's coming. Usyk's not afraid of Fury. He's coming. So the question is Fury the one he's not sure how the fight would turn out because Usyk knows how to box. He knows distance. He understands how boxing works. Is that the one that Fury's kind of intimidated about and he's trying to get into Usyk's head? I'm a love to see that fight for sure, and that's another big money fight. Big, that's a big fight because it's just Errol Spence versus Terrence Crawford is a big fight. These are fights that's what boxing's all about. These are the fights you want to see. So when these fighters, for their ego and petty nonsense, don't want to make money and don't want to fill each other's pockets, it really is really sad. And the promoters are trying to hug all the money or whatever, managers and promoters. It's sad because these people shooting their own self in the foot. Look, ain't nobody care if you win or lose. That's money right there in the bank. And depending on how you perform in that fight, if you don't just get knocked out in the first round, which is very unlikely with all those fights there, if the fight goes the distance or the fight goes close to the end and somebody gets stopped, guess what? Guess what? People want to see those fights again. Those fights could end up being another trilogy, or it could end up being that they meet up again further down the road. That's the kind of stuff that makes boxing exciting. But when you're trying to, you know, you're trying to play A side or whatever you're trying to play when you're not, you should follow your role. If you're the B side, just agree to everything and just get the fight on. So you could beat the guy and then you could dictate. But if these guys don't get that and they don't understand that, Devin Haney showed us how it's done. If you have the confidence you can beat this guy's ass, then make it happen. Just make sure the fight happens. You know? And that's the way Floyd did it. Floyd didn't just become Money Mayweather just like that. He whatever Oscar said, he did. Right? Once he could call the shots from there on in, he started calling the shots. And that's what these guys gotta understand. Devin Haney. Kambosos made certain demands. Devin Haney said whatever you want, bro. Because he had confidence in his skills. When you gotta be nitty picking and all of this shit because you feel you should have been ace out or you should have a saying something, then you don't really want no damn fight. You're not hungry for it. You're not hungry to be undisputed. You're not hungry to be undisputed. And I get that feeling with Bud. Bud doesn't seem to be hungry for undisputed. At the same time, Errol ain't showing he really want to get Bud. If he really wanted to get Bud and he wanted really to make that happen, he'd have told Al Heyman, make sure that whatever Bud say, don't give him no excuse. Let's have it. I don't want this guy walking out this negotiation. I want to make sure this fight happens. Make sure it happens. You know what I mean? That's what you do. If you're really about it. Devin Haney with Vasily Lomachenko. Lomachenko obviously looking for a way out, wherever, you know. Because Lomachenko don't really want to face Devin Haney. You know that. We all know this. But when he commit to it, he going to commit to it. Devin Haney and Bill Haney not giving Lomachenko no excuse to come out to fight. For nothing. You know what I'm saying? And that's the point. You got to make those big fights, and that's a big fight. Lomachenko versus Devin Haney is a big fight. It's a big fight, huge fight. Depending on how ESPN promotes it, depending on if it's a pay-per-view or not, huge fight. Okay? And these are the kinds of fights we need to see. So, shout out to Inoue for facing Fulton. That's a big task for Inoue, but hey, I like his moxie. That's the spirit you need to come in. Especially when you're not as well known a boxer, you to get that notorious nature, that name, so that your name is in everybody's mouth. Not only that, but you're making money off of that, because you gotta get it. It's not just about being famous. You want to make money off of that, right? In order to get to that point where you can call the shots, where you do negotiate certain things, to get to that point, you gotta first start with, as they say, the pretty boy route. You gotta be hungry for it. You gotta be hungry to get into that position where you can call the shots like that. So I just hope the younger fighters understand that. I try to put into play a lot of other things I'm saying to these younger fighters. It's again, if you really gonna follow Floyd Mayweather blueprint or green print or whatever you want to call it, then you gotta watch him from all his career. Because this dude was hungry for it. He was coming. He didn't duck or dodge nobody. He was coming for the smoke.
and you have to come for the smoke. You got to show people, at least especially in the earlier parts of your career, that you ready. You all about that smoke. And if you're going for undisputed, then go for undisputed. You know, but don't half-ass it. And don't be telling us about money and currency and all this bullshit. When at the end of the day, y'all just looking for a reason to get out of the smoke. You're either going for the smoke or you're not going for the smoke. It's period. You gotta make up your mind. And yes, these fighters have families and all of that to take care of. So therefore, make sure your paycheck is good. Meaning, make sure you get into big fights. And it's not just one big fight that will make you. It's several big fights that will make you. So make sure you get them. And the only way you're gonna get them is if you face the best. We don't want to hear no talk. We don't want to hear no excuses as fans. We want to put our money where our mouth is. So if you say you're gonna have a fight and then you don't have the fight, then we started, as you can see, the fans have very little respect for it, and then they may not pay for your pay-per-view when it's time because it's over marinated or people lost their fights and whatever. You're not gonna get this Mayweather Pacquiao phenomenon again. I'll tell you why. One is people were disappointed with the fight with Mayweather Pacquiao, a lot of people, and because of that, people ain't gonna be so hungry for pay-per-views that they gonna spend money just like that, right? So if you keep on trying to delay and hold out a fight and trying to maximize it, it ain't gonna work like the last time because that was a bad experience people had with that. Anyways, man, that's all I got for you guys for now. I am what you need. I talked a whole hour and almost 2 minutes, coming on 2 minutes in a second. So I'm gonna cut it right here. You guys have a good one.